Welcome to Inspiring Entrepreneurs, the podcast from Strathclyde Inspire. I'm one of your hosts, Katie Woods, Ecosystem Development Executive here at Scotland's leading entrepreneurial campus. This year has been an exciting one for our podcast as we underwent a rebrand and are now called Inspiring Entrepreneurs. This new identity better captures the spirit and purpose of our series to tell you the stories, the challenges and successes behind some of the most innovative entrepreneurial minds from the University of Strathclyde and beyond. In this special episode, we're doing a roundup of the best bits from our recent episodes, highlighting the most insightful and inspiring moments from our incredible guests. We've explored a wide range of themes, particularly emphasising the importance of adopting an entrepreneurial mindset. Without further ado, let's dive into the highlights from each episode, celebrating the wisdom and experience shared by our expert guests. Whether you're a student, entrepreneur, professional, or policymaker, there's something here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit and to help you on your journey. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by the best of inspiring entrepreneurs.
I feel being an entrepreneur, you have to get really comfortable with failure and just know that not everything is going to work out. So I think just getting comfortable and viewing things as trial and error, that just try things. If it fails, you learn from it. And as a saying, to fail fast. I think that's really important too. Don't waste your time.
Thank you so much for joining us, Suzanne and Ezia, and congratulations on the book launch. Very exciting. So firstly, I just wanted to ask, what motivated you both to write about entrepreneurial thinking, and how did the idea for this book come to life?
So at the time, this was maybe 3.5 years ago, there was a lot of conversation and use of the word entrepreneurial mindset. All of a sudden, it was everywhere. And it was in the press, it was being used in policy documents. The Scottish government used it in the Can Do initiative. It was in the Scottish policy for national economic transformation. From Europe, we had the entrepreneurial competencies framework. It was everywhere. And we were starting to be approached to teach classes on entrepreneurial mindset as being known to be the people that study entrepreneurial thinking academically. But funnily enough, there was no book on this. And nobody could really actually tell us what entrepreneurial mindset was or is. So we decided that we needed a source. We couldn't find one. And we thought, let's just make our own. We knew what the literature was. It wasn't called entrepreneurial mindset. It was called something else. Entrepreneurial cognition, entrepreneurial thinking. And we knew what that was needed. So we thought, let's go for it. Let's make it.
We also wanted something that looked and felt different. A lot of what we talk about is about developing our creativity, thinking about what's possible rather than what is. We do a lot of experiential learning in our classes, and we know that from a skills and competences perspective, entrepreneurial thinking is something that we only get better at with practice. And so we really wanted to try to push the boundaries of the sort of standard textbook that we're used to seeing and our students were used to working with, that we really didn't feel was enabling the kinds of messages that we wanted to promote. So we really wanted to not only develop a book that had a new area of focus, but also to do something that felt very different than a conventional book. And we hope that we've achieved this with our what we call a hybrid textbook workbook. If anyone has a better term for it, we are still struggling ourselves. But that's how we think about it. It's not just something to be read and then stuck on a shelf. We really want this to be used regularly. We want to see it be annotated and sticky notes, dog-eared, pages torn out. We really want to see it be worked through, not just once in a class, but also something that can follow people through their own learning journey, whether that's through a degree program or whether that's through their own personal and professional development longer term.
You have to have not just starting businesses, but far more importantly, just grow them. That's how you create employment. Not everyone's going to take that risk or that leap of faith and start a business, but it'd be cool to work for an interesting place rather than the diminishing corporate rules that are out there. In any case, so the profile of entrepreneurship. Strathclyde Inspire, perfect example, institution-wide entrepreneurship strategy for the entire university, for staff, students, and all. Brilliant. Yeah. It's only taken 20 plus years to deliver what we set out to do, but we have. That's the exciting part of it, and that's why we do this series.
I think it's a stereotype too. I think when you think of entrepreneur, you think Richard Branson, you think Sir Tom Hunter and people like this who have made it and made the millions or billions or whatever. But actually, it's anyone from owning a street food cart to starting a business anywhere. So there's a mindset I think needs to change. That being an entrepreneur is accessible. Everyone can do it, and it doesn't matter the scale of your business or your startup. It can be you stay a one-man band forever, or it could be a multi-country corporation.
I think that's a key point, Daniel, because there's a lot of emphasis on, particularly with tech businesses, the whole infrastructure and tech scalers, and we're going to start tech businesses and scale them. I mean, there's all sorts of definitions around scaling, but that very rapid growth, which is inevitably leading to probably an exit, to a sale, which is okay, because we'll come back to it. But there's actually an awful lot of, that there's always a fear if you're not in that space, you shouldn't be doing this. And actually, we should. I mean, you articulated brilliant. Entrepreneurship is mindset. It's not taking personal responsibility, and you can then decide. Because you started and then you saw opportunities. You've got clearly this very inquiring mindset, which is, oh, well, that's interesting. What next? What next? What next? And then, right, I'm interested in how you learned to let go then, because you did say you were always doing your other tools. Yeah. The toughest bit about growing any business is that learning to let go piece. How did you kind of come to realise that's what you needed to do?
Yeah, it took a while. This element of trust, that's not to say I don't trust my staff, but or maybe I'm just too hands-on and a little bit of a control freak. I think it'd be fair to say a little bit. But yeah, it came over time. When scale made it impossible for me to be involved in everything, and that old saying, hire people who are better than you, is absolutely true. And all the younger people coming through with not just degrees but experience, who understand brands, who understand how to talk to younger generation, old generation, there's better people than me in design and writing content, and that jack of all trades. I've become someone that understands it all. So a jack of all trades thing is good. I can talk to people in different teams, from insights to design to content writing. But the people who do it day in, day out are better than me ultimately. And that's when you need to let go. The challenge is the leadership side of it, I guess. It's the always on pressure, I suppose, is that the buck stops with you. And that's, it's sometimes in the background, things can be going swimmingly well. Companies growing, winning clients, everything's great. But ultimately, at the back of your mind, you're still the kind of top of the pile, I suppose. So there's that kind of unwritten pressure that there's always on. So that is a challenge of leadership. Now, luckily, I had a business partner from day one. Me and Mike shared a lot of responsibility. So I recommend getting a business partner. Doing it alone can be quite lonely. They say it's lonely at the top, and I now get that a lot. So having a business partner.
And did you have your separate, distinct roles, if you like?
Yeah, it was
clear who was doing.
Pretty much, not black and white, some grey areas, but pretty much. Mike had been an MD before, so took ownership of a lot of financials, the contractual stuff, legal stuff, new business, for example. And I'd come up the ranks from social media exec to head of a social media team, so I was very hands-on. So I would say the skills, the design of the teams and so on came from my own experience at that time, whereas Mike was the business ownership side. And over the years, I've got more experience of that, and I've taken more to do with business development, client services, all that kind of stuff too. But it was a good combo, good foil. We're quite different personalities too, so I would recommend that. He's quite a outgoing, quite a loud person. I'm quite a introverted, quiet person, but together we formed a good team, and testament to the success of Pyrogen and the great support we've got from our team.
I run Chloe's Deal Club, where I have an online social media and email community where I help them save money just with small everyday things that they can be doing just to make their money go further. So how to save money on groceries, save money on holidays, how to save money on your favourite beauty products. So just those small everyday wins that actually really add up to quite a lot over the months and over the years as well. So I started this purely as a hobby 5 years ago. I'm amazed I've been able to stick to it. I've been a bit of a serial side hustler, but I always get bored of things after a few months. Like I feel I've tried everything, but this is the one that stuck, and it's just such a rewarding job, what I do. I love being able to make a difference to people's lives. And yeah, here we are 5 years later. I've got a community of over 150,000, which blows my mind. And then, yeah, recently won the Money Influencer of the Year award at the British Bank Awards.
The theme for this year, so International Women's Day is coming up, and the theme for this year is Inspire Inclusion. So how do you think we can inspire others to value women's inclusion and forge that more kind of inclusive world for women? I know you've touched on that slightly in terms of how they advertise jobs, but anything further you'd like to discuss?
I think just having more people do this type of thing, to talk about it, to go out into schools and really talk to young people. So I've got 3 nieces, and so I've been to their school a few times for things like STEM week or science week, that kind of thing, and talk to them about my job, and talk to them about all sorts of different jobs. I think, when a lot of times when we think about scientists and engineers, we have a very fixed view of what that looks like. And so I talk to them about engineers solve the problems of the world. That's what they do, right? So is there a problem that you would like to solve in your family or whatever? To try and understand that is that problem solving ability. That's what engineers do. My youngest niece is she's 12, and she's wanted to be an engineer for as long as I can remember. And she's got it that nobody will give her an internship at the age of 12. So we'll need to. And I said to her, you really need to be about 16. And she's like, but Aunt Sarah, I could be the youngest one. So, but I think it's that kind of thing. Like, young people want to solve problems. They see the complex problems that we have to solve in the world today, and they want to solve problems. Helping them to understand that being an engineer helps you solve those problems, I think, will encourage more young people to do it, and more women to go into that area.
Absolutely. I love that drive and enthusiasm. That's what we need more.
I'll be the youngest one. It's brilliant.
That's fantastic.
I think it's really, really important. I mean, I personally think everyone should be doing something entrepreneurial or be looking at doing their own business. I just think we only live once, and just go and try it. You never know what it could lead to, even if it's just something that you do on the sides. But I've always been very entrepreneurial from a young age, even when I'd first decided that I would really love a dog when I was a kid. Like, I would go around and sell things to people to then save up money to buy her buy her toys and a collar and a lead. So I've just always liked finding different ways to make money. And just doing that was also helping people as well. So I feel it's really, really important to be included in that. When I was in school, I remember we would have the careers classes, and I remember saying at one point, I want to start a kennels and I want to franchise it across the UK, and they were like, absolutely not, you're going to go be a doctor, a lawyer, accountant. But that just wasn't something that appealed to me. I was then like, maybe I want to be a chef, and then I'll open restaurants across the world. So it's interesting that in school I find it was very quashed being an entrepreneur, and it's no, you're going to pick a career. That's going to be your career for life. You're going to go study it, and that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Whereas I feel when you get to uni, there's so much creativity and potential in your ideas and courage that I think that's something that should also, I think, be done from a younger age. But I think even if your first taste of that is at uni, I think it's absolutely something that should be offered to all courses.
Indeed, people can be born with characteristics that are conducive to entrepreneurial activity. Some people are resilient by nature, some people are detail-oriented by nature, some people are, creative by nature, but none of these combinations will work for everyone in every context. So one of the key core principles of the book is that, for a start, entrepreneurial thinking is not a trait, is a thinking style. And there is a difference, because we are born with traits. Thinking is something we can work on. We all hear about the word neuroplasticity. Our brain can rewire itself, and our habits of thinking can be changed by thinking differently enough times that our brain will follow a different pathway next time. So that's a core principle. the other core principle is that, like I said, not one single combination of these factors will work perfectly in every context. So the idea for the book is that people become aware of what the principles are, and then think about how they apply in their context, in their country, in their culture, in their environment, industry-wise, and make them work for them. So no one size fits all. And the other principle is that without reflecting on ourselves, we are not going to change that. You need to know where you're starting from. You need to become a knower of your own character. And be prepared to take a hard look at that. Some of us don't like to look in the mirror and see things about ourselves that maybe are not perfect. And that is exactly what's required here.
In terms of key skills, one thing I pride myself on, not to sound mega cheesy, is empathy. It's like understanding, or trying your best to understand the other person's viewpoint. Put yourself in the shoes of clients. What are they trying to achieve? What are their constraints? Do they have a boss that's on their back? Do they have a corporate policy that's restricting them? Really trying to understand them, and that's really important from a customer relationship point of view, but also for social media generally. If you're writing for a company, be it an energy company, a whiskey company, different audiences, different tones of voice, so that empathy of understanding their audience and what they're trying to get out is absolutely key to success in social media. So empathy, big thing.
Could empathy be taught to them?
I think you can learn it a little bit, but not taught in the sense of education, university, but from experience. I think it comes. And I think it's a natural gift as well. If you have that as a natural gift, I think you'll go far in marketing.
Best strong piece of advice.
Can you just give us a bit of an overview of your background, what led you to pursuing a career in science and manufacturing, and how you got to where you are today?
Okay. So the inspiring me to follow a career in science was actually a man called Ivan Ruddock, who used to be a lecturer here at Strathclyde. And I came in 1988 to an open night for the physics department, and he was in the lab leaping about, being really excited about lasers, and I was like, oh my God, I need to do that. So that kind of kick-started that, and I was always encouraged by my parents to just pursue whatever I wanted to pursue, to do whatever I wanted to do. And I guess in those days it was a bit unusual for girls to do physics, to do science. But I just found it was really exciting, really engaging. So I came to Strathclyde in 1988 and I graduated in 1992. After that, I went to Heriot-Watt University. I did a master's in laser engineering. And then I spent the first sort of 7 years of my career in the defence industry. So I went to work for Thales Optronics in Glasgow, and I did target designator and laser rangefinder design and manufacture. And it was when I went into the manufacturing side of that organisation, I thought, I found what I want to do. Right? I didn't realise you could have a career making things. And I grew up on a diet of Tomorrow's World and Blue Peter, right? So I made things all the time, and I was interested in new technologies. And when I went into the manufacturing side at Thales, I really thought, I found my place. I want to make more than one of something. I want to be good at making things. And that sort of kick-started the whole journey into manufacturing.
So I remember reading, I wish I could remember what the stat was. I remember reading a stat before that the amount of investment funding that goes to women CEOs versus men, it's such a tiny, tiny percent. So I think there's still a lot of work to do for women to be taken seriously. Like, is that sort of the right way to say that? That I feel it's still very, very behind in that sense. And even when you hear companies being like, oh, it's a female CEO or it's a woman CEO, I'm like, well, she's just a CEO.
Yeah.
It does not matter what someone's gender is. That shouldn't make it any more or less of a special case. So I think there's a lot that still needs to be done to improve support of women and really encourage that as well. There's a whole other thing that you can go into as well, that there's the gender gap as well. Even if a woman decides to have a child, that instantly it's less money going into the pension pot by taking maternity leave, or they only go back to work part-time, or they have to give up their job. So I think there's just so much work that needs to be done across the board to be able to support women better, to actually be able to go and try the things that they want to try, and also be taken seriously too.
Yeah, so I think we're really, really fortunate here in Scotland. We've got an extremely active entrepreneurial ecosystem, tons of support, tons of providers, lots of amazing initiatives. What we tend to see is a focus on new ventures or scaling and growing ventures. And of course, there is a place for that. But what we tend to see is missing are the foundations or the antecedents of that. So how do we get people to think in a way that gives them the possibility of perhaps choosing to do a new venture, or perhaps bringing that ability to be innovative and creative, to push boundaries, to grapple with uncertainty, bringing those skills within existing organizations. And I think what we don't have quite so much of yet is a series of interventions really focused on building thinking and mindset, developing awareness of the importance of these skills, building comfort and competence, and providing structured support for skill building in these areas.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. So I think you've mentioned it already. The world is constantly changing, potentially faster now than ever. How do you see the role of entrepreneurial thinking evolving in the future? And are there new areas where you believe it will become increasingly important?
So entrepreneurial mindset to us, quite simply, is about future-proofing ourselves. And in the book, we use the work of Gabriela Rosen-Kellerman and Martin Seligman. And they wrote a book called Tomorrow Mind. And when we looked at Tomorrow Mind, which we mentioned in the book, by the way, you find that their skills map exactly into the entrepreneurial mindset skills that we are talking about in our own book, because they are saying that as the pace of change increases, we need to focus more on AI, for example. And the pace of adoption of AI in every sector is accelerating. And that means that anything that can be potentially scripted and as a protocol attached to it, AI will be able to do for us probably faster, probably more efficiently, with less, fewer errors, fewer mistakes than us. And that should not be something that we are afraid of, because if we embrace an entrepreneurial mindset, we can reinvent our role in society and in our jobs to do more with being creative and with making leaps forward in terms of our innovation and creativity. And that is going to be what the jobs of tomorrow are going to be about. So an entrepreneurial mindset is very, very useful there. And other angle that I think is going to become increasingly important is leveraging diversity. Suzanne said earlier that the problems we are facing now are so complex, so uncertain, so unpredictable, that not one type of expertise or one type of knowledge can fix those. And we have this tendency that we turn to the experts when we want to fix a problem. But entrepreneurial thinking encourages us to take on board views from multiple people, from people who think differently. Sometimes that's hard because sometimes we don't see eye to eye, but that's going to become necessary. We know that diversity is the sauce where innovation cooks, but we don't really practice it as much as we should. And in entrepreneurial thinking, in the book, certainly, we talk a lot about how to interact with others that are different from us under conditions where there are no clear guidelines. And that is going to become necessary, I think, in the future.
That was beautifully put. Wow. I absolutely feel inspired just listening to you there, the passion. I absolutely love it. So yeah, brilliant.
Every successful entrepreneur experiences failure in some shape or form. We often talk about the importance of resilience here at Strathclyde and actively encourage our staff and students to have that sort of self-belief to be able to overcome setbacks, which everyone will experience at some point. Can you share with us today your biggest setback and what you kind of took away and learned from that experience and how it maybe built your own resilience?
Yeah, and I agree. Resilience is really important, right? Understanding that whatever the problem is, it can be solved, right? You might not know the answer today, but you can actually, you can solve it. It helps you in your professional life and also in your personal life.
Yeah.
So I think, and I've had lots of failures. There's been loads of things that don't go well. I mean, I think, when I was just starting out, for example, and I was at at Talis, one Friday afternoon, I destroyed 2 laser slabs, and they were 30 grand each. So when I left there, actually, the ops director totted up a list of all the costs of all the things that I had broken, right? And that was I was like, oh, I can't believe I've just done that. And I was in this lab on my own, and, it'd all gone wrong, clearly. And I came up the stairs and I talked to my boss, and I was like, oh, I've just broken those 2 slabs. And he just looked at me and said, we're doing stuff that's really difficult that no one else does.
Yeah.
So this type of thing is bound to happen. Now, he wasn't like, don't worry about don't worry about it at all, Sarah, but he was just like, this stuff happens. And I think being able to work in that type of environment where, yes, this stuff happens, so how do we recover from it? Understanding that you've got the support of other people for those things is really important. But I think one of the biggest lessons I learned, and I started to think about it when I was at a conference once, listening to a guy talk about it, is we always focus on the things that don't work, and how do we learn from those, right? No one ever questions the good news, right? So I think if something is working better than you anticipated, better than the model, better than whatever result you thought you were going to get, you should also question that, because when it doesn't work, you're forced to look at it. So when something's working, we just kind of carry on going, that's great, that worked even better than I thought it would. Understanding why it worked better is also really important, because then you can apply that thinking to the next time you're doing something like that. So I think, question the good news as well as the bad news would be my advice in those areas.
And that's it for this episode of Inspiring Entrepreneurs. Thank you for joining us. And remember to hit that subscribe or follow button on whichever platform you're listening on. See you next time.